Using a homemade telescope 412 years ago, Galileo discovered Jupiter's icy moons. Next year, JUICE will embark on a mission 365 miles away to look for what hides under alien oceans. Finally, humanity will witness the truth underneath Europa, Callisto, and Ganymede. The European Space Agency's Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer will have a 7.5-year journey until it reaches its destination. Keep watching to see JUICE mission, Did Life Ever Exist on Distant Worlds? Jupiter's moons. There are high hopes for each icy giant. Ganymede is the largest moon in the solar system, bigger than Mercury and Pluto, and twice the size of our moon. It may be entirely made out of rocks and ice, but what lies underneath is what keeps most investigators awake. This massive moon has a giant ocean of liquid salt water buried deep beneath its rocky surface, a sea with several layers of salt water separated by thick layers of ice. That ocean could be a life provider. Another sign is the magnetic field surrounding the moon, which shares similarities with Earth. Callisto has the most craters in the solar system in pristine conditions since there is no geologic, tectonic, or volcanic activity on its surface. Those unchanged craters in terrain are an immense opportunity to study a moon that stayed in the same conditions as it was 4.5 billion years ago. And yes, it also has an underground ocean waiting to be explored. Europa is the smallest of the three moons, yet it is widely considered the most promising place to look for life beyond Earth since, despite being only 1/4 of Earth's diameter, it contains twice as much water on its massive underground ocean. And it could be the oldest. Europa's frozen outer shell, it's been there since the formation of the solar system 4.5 billion years ago. The Jupiter mission. The Ariane 5 will be the rocket that will propel the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer to space in April 2023, with the Europe spaceport in French Guiana, South America. After a long trip of 365 million miles in 2031, the Explorer will be the first European spacecraft to visit Jupiter. Once there, it will take 3.5 years to explore all three moons, looking for water and any sign of life. The main objective is to look closely at Europa and Callisto during flybys. It will go into Ganymede's orbit in September 2032, making the historic achievement of being the first ever spacecraft to orbit a second moon after our known neighbor. This will be the first up-close flybys of these moons after more than 20 years since the Galileo mission in 1995. A Jupiter orbiter planned to last 7 years but endured over 13 and traveled a total distance of 2.88 billion miles orbiting the distant planet. More recently, in June 2021, NASA's Juno was able to get close to Ganymede. A year before JUICE's arrival, the Europa Clipper mission will get around Europa 32 times. In the next 20 years, humanity will reveal unthinkable discoveries about those lonely and far icy giants. And the search for life will have many answers since that has been the ultimate goal of deep space exploration. Currently, all eyes are set on Mars. Yet, nearby Jupiter, behind fascinating ice shelves, there are several oceans to uncover. Out there in the Jovian system, reportedly first discovered by the Babylonians 2,800 years ago, it is time to go there again to examine these icy giants up close. Jupiter is the 5th planet of our solar system, surrounded by moons full of oceans, bodies with their very own magnetic field, and an insane size to explore. Jupiter is so big that Earth could fit in it 11,000 times. Jupiter is the most massive planet in our solar system. It is 42,000 miles wide, and even adding the sum of all the other planets combined gets a small chunk of this massive stormy planet's actual scope and size. The Jovian system will be unveiled, discovering insights into energy exchanges between Jupiter and their icy moons. This is essential data to understand their ancient origins and formation. Today, the formation of the Jovian system is theorized to be thanks to the cores that exerted rapidly into large clumps of ice and rock, capturing large amounts of hydrogen and other unknown gases from the surrounding nebula by massive gravity forces. The JUICE mission will define the planet's ability for long-term exploration value. If there is enough information valuable to space agencies, it could be a future candidate to keep pushing the barriers of interplanetary missions. and the first step is JUICE, which will open up the Jupiter system layer by layer in 35 Jovian moon flybys. The spacecraft will be over 85 square meters of solar wings to get the most details out of Jupiter and the 3 moons. It will be well prepared with remote sensing, geophysical, and stationary instruments to classify, study, and research several gas giant archetypes for other systems across the universe. All the Galilean moons could garden life, and the JUICE mission will determine this with unrecorded accuracy. One of the main moons to keep an eye on is Ganymede, the biggest moon that will answer if life ever appeared in the Jovian system. The Galilean moons have a lot of work: hidden oceans, magnetic forces, heating processes, tidal effects, orbits, and what kind of activity lies in the icy surface, cores, and compositions. And every tiny aspect could give scientists clues as to how and if life could emerge on Ganymede, Europa, or Callisto. Since the first Babylonian set its eyes on Jupiter, many mysteries remain to be resolved thousands of years ago. The mission task list is well organized to reveal every aspect, from studying those eerie magnetic fields to the ultimate goal of being the first discovery of alien life. Looking at one photo, you get the idea that it may be a little windy over Jupiter, a tangerine storm larger than Earth itself, making it an impossible barrier to humankind. And the temperature of those Jupiter winds is in another league. Anything that touches the top of Jupiter clouds would freeze upon impact at minus 280 degrees Fahrenheit. They are likely made out of ammonia ice crystals. One core reason to travel so many million miles into deep space is the sought after and alien H2O. Water is the potential of alien life. Are the moons the answer to that question? Is there life on Jupiter? A planet without water or land is made out of gas and atmospheric water vapor. Standing on it would be impossible, since anything that gets past those freezing storms will fall, eventually crashing into the core's tight gravity center, 14 times that of Earth. That's why the mission will concentrate mainly on the Jupiter moons, where there is an icy world with solid ground, especially in Europa. This region is at the top of the scientists' list. Europa may be the bearer of extraterrestrial life. NASA is building a ship to explore this theory further, called the Clipper, an interplanetary mission in development that will launch in October 2024 to start orbiting Europa throughout several flybys. 79 individual satellites orbit Jupiter. If it were the Sun, it could have its own solar system, and ESA is trying to find answers as to how complex the space environment shaped the trajectory and conditions of its moons. Jupiter, at the same time, moves so quickly at 28,148 miles per hour, taking only 10 hours to fully rotate on its axis. All those forces would examine up close by these flybys. A real challenge for the European Space Agency wants to be the first to look up close at this complex Jovian system, and JUICE is the gateway to achieving such a pioneer milestone. The investment in space continues to deliver over and over again many benefits to mankind. ESA wants to get ahead of the space race, accomplishing this titanic task. JUICE discoveries. One of the most renowned mysteries of this gas giant is the Great Red Spot, a persistent anticyclonic storm located south of its equator. Measuring 14 million miles wide, it is so big it can contain 3 planets the size of Earth inside that dot. The first to look at it up close was the Voyager 1 mission in 1979. And that is just one of the most famous mysteries the JUICE mission will reveal. Another point to consider is how these gas giants were formed. How is that scientifically possible to have enormous gas giants that have no surface, yet still hold together? Like Neptune and Saturn, just active molecules floating around our solar system. JUICE will share many answers, and it has the potential to make one of the most sounding discoveries that humankind has ever wondered when looking at the stars. Is there life in deep space? Will JUICE discover its biggest mysteries, or will it fail in this daring 365 million trip towards unraveling the Jovian system around gas giants and ocean-bearer moons? Join the conversation in the comments below.